There they were, together again, almost like it used to be, finally reunited after years apart. But this wasn't a reunion. A wall, thick and cold, kept them apart. 2 death house cells, close enough to speak, too far reach. It was June 18th, 1953. 24 hours before the perfect Cold War story would reach its final act. The execution of 2 working-class Jewish communists inside New York's Singing Prison. Husband and wife, mother-father, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. Their names fueled headlines, protests, and political theatre. Traitors to some, martyrs to others. Now both had their last stop before the chair. One thing was certain, their final 24 hours were unlike anything we have seen to this day. 4 years earlier, 1949, Cold War paranoia was at a boiling point. The great enemy went nuclear. Soviets had detonated their first atomic bomb too soon to make sense. Eyes turned inward. America wanted answers. The trail led to David Greenlass, an army machinist at Los Alamos, the birthplace of Manhattan Project's atomic bomb. He confessed to handing over secrets, sketches, descriptions, diagrams. But he also pointed to someone else, his brother-in-law, Julius Rosenberg, a former Army Signal Corps engineer. According to the FBI, Julius was architect of a Soviet spy network, recruiting friends, co-workers, even family to pass atomic intel the other side. But the investigation didn't stop with Julius. It kept growing, and soon authorities caught the scent of Ruth Greenlass, David's wife. She wasn't just a bystander, she passed messages, set up meetings, helped move the intel, and just before authorities closed in, David made his move. In a desperate gamble, he gave them someone else to chase. His very own sister, Ethel, claimed she was the one who typed up the secrets, sketches, and diagrams meant for Stalin's bomb. A lie that became the spine of the entire prosecution. Years later, when asked how he could do it, David said, "I would not sacrifice my wife and my children for sister." The trial was fast. The whole world watched. Julius and Ethel Rosenberg, guilty of conspiracy to commit espionage. That charge alone wasn't enough for death, so they called it treason. They said the Rosenbergs had helped deliver the atomic secret to Moscow. The judge agreed. On April 5th, 1951, he sentenced them both to die. Justice or fear had claimed its price. That night, across the river in New Jersey, 2 young boys lay wide awake. Michael, 10, and Robert, 6, was a burden no child should ever carry. Too heavy for sleep, too cruel dreams. Going to bed without a kiss from Mom had become routine. Just days earlier, they had written a letter, childlike plea, hand-scrawled on lined paper and sent to the President of the United States. "We can't live without our parents. Please let them stay with us." No answer ever came, but a spark of hope remained. Across the country, lawyers held their breath, waiting for the final decision. A pending last-ditch appeal to the US Supreme Court, begging for a stay of execution. And while waiting for the court's decision, a new complication surfaced, one not driven by law, but the calendar. If the court denied stay, as many feared, the execution would land deep into the Jewish Sabbath, a day of rest and prayer, running from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. The original execution time, 11 p.m. on Friday, was hours after Sabbath had begun. Earlier that day, an attorney from the defense team had met with Judge Irving Kaufman. She raised a simple human request: don't let them die on the Sabbath. To her surprise, even the government flinched at the optics. Attorney General Herbert Brownell had already briefed Kaufman, and the judge made a promise. If the stay was denied, the execution would be moved. Hope flickered. Another day, another slim chance. If the execution didn't happen by June 19th, the final day of court's own deadline, the whole machinery would have to start again. A new date, a new fight, maybe weeks of life bought by a single missed night. Outside the gates of Sing, crowds grew, Supporters lit candles and held signs reading, "We are innocent." Opponents shouted back, waving banners that screamed, "Death to the communist rats," chant against chant, "Hope Fury." And then the news came in. The Supreme Court had spoken. No explanation, no dissent, just one word: denied. The final appeal was gone, and with it any last legal barrier. Outside, the world knew. Inside, the Rosenbergs were still waiting. By mid-afternoon, Attorney General Herbert Brownell made the final ruling official, handing the news to press. At Sing, Warden Wilfred Dino delivered it straight to Julius and Ethel. Brownell kept his word. There would be no execution during the Sabbath, but what came next was a shock no one saw coming. There would be no new date, no delay. The execution was set for 8:01 p.m. that same day, just minutes before sundown. The clock didn't slow down, it sped up. They had sidestepped the Sabbath by thinnest possible margin. And that wasn't just about honouring tradition, it was about controlling the moment. By pulling time forward, they limited protests. Press limited the chance for anything or anyone to interfere. The New York State Police activated the lockdown plan. 170 officers moved in, sealing off the grounds. Even patrol boats lined the Hudson. But one crucial piece was missing: the executioner. Joseph Francel, the man who operated Chair, was still at home in Cairo, New York. He wasn't a government official, just local electrician who travelled for executions. Officials tried calling. No answer. Panic spread fast. 2 FBI agents were dispatched, racing north to find him. Their orders were simple: get him. Bring him. No matter what, everything had to happen before the sun slipped away. The schedule inside Sing collapsed under the sudden change because of rushed timeline. There was barely time to follow standard procedure. The Rosenbergs were offered a final meal, but quietly declined. They chose not to eat. They chose to talk. Spent their final hours in the visitor's cubicle, talking quietly, separated by glass, but connected in spirit, facing each other one last time. No panic, no tears, just soft, steady words between them. There was a remarkable calm between them, even in the final hours. The warden noted down the corridor. Another kind of meeting was in motion. Hid in the dark, the FBI waited for final gamble. They had spent days preparing for this moment. The day before, agents slipped through the gates and set up a hidden command post inside the warden's garage, shielded by a veil of secrecy. 2 secure phone lines, one to the garage, one above the death house. If either Julius or Ethel broke, even strapped into the chair, execution could be halted. The agents had rehearsed every detail. Internal memos made it clear. If the Rosenbergs talked, the interrogations could go on as long as they desire, extending into months if necessary. The focus was Julius. Bureau still believed he might fold in those final hours. Ethel, an afterthought. A 13-page memo outlined everything they would ask Julius if he broke. Only one question concerned her. Was your wife cognizant of activities? That was it. No more. While the final preparations began, personal stuff collected, dressed for the occasion, legs shaved for electrode contact, someone on the outside made one last desperate move. Their loyal defense attorney, Emmanuel Bloch. BL carried a letter handwritten by Ethel, not begging for herself, but for her family. A letter to Dwight D. Eisenhower, the President of the United States. She addressed him with reverence, despite once calling him a Nazi enforcer. But the plea never made it inside. No one answered the door. So it all ended there, outside the White House gates. Devastated but resolute, Blogg passed one final message to the prison. "Tell them I did the best I could for them," he said. "Tell them I love, and so does the whole world." Julius had already placed his trust in Bloch beyond the courtroom. In his final will, he named him guardian of his sons. One last act of faith before the lights went out. His final words to Bloch were simple. Be strong for us, beloved friend. We wish you a long life to continue your fruitful work in health and happiness. Never let them change the truth of our innocence. The executioner had arrived. Reporters took their seats. No family, no friends. Everything was set. At exactly 8 p.m, Julius Rosenberg was led into the chamber. His knees buckled at the side of the chair. The guards assisted as they secured him into place. A 6-man FBI team waited in the command post, ready for a crack, but nothing came. No final words, no confession, last-minute plea. The secret stayed with him. There would be no last-minute revelation. With a single pull, the executioner sealed the end. At 8:06 p.m, Julius Rosenberg was pronounced dead. As his body was removed, a guard stepped forward to clean the chair with ammonia. Then came Ethel. 2 matrons escorted her into the chamber. She kissed one goodbye, shook the other's hand. Composed, defiant, she walked to the chair on her own. No resistance as the straps were fastened. Rabbi Koslow began the 31st Psalm. In Thee, O Lord, have I taken refuge. I am forgotten as a dead man out of mind. I am like a useless vessel. Ethel said nothing, her silence louder than any final words. Then, without warning, the first jolt struck. It didn't work. The second followed. Still nothing. It took 5 shocks and nearly 5 minutes, but finally at 8:11 p.m, Ethel Rosenberg was pronounced dead. The sun dipped below the Hudson River. Eyewitnesses reported the sky turning a vivid blood red, an eerie backdrop to the moment. The executions were over. The debate had only just begun. What do you think? Was justice served, or was this Cold War paranoia gone too far? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories like this one, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. See you in the next one.